أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Sorry for the delay. As usual, 10 minutes delay. Well, actually 9 minutes delay. We are 1 minute earlier than the previous session, so we are good. Alhamdulillah. So just a quick recap of what we are up to so far. So I guess you'll keep hearing this at the beginning of next session too. Like human is different than animals for sure. So let's re-emphasize this part. And for animals, there is a limit of how savage they become, how fearful they become. Like they come to life. A bee is a bee. Like a bee never becomes like a lion, or a sparrow never becomes like this super courageous animal. A sparrow is this fearing animal. A lion is this savage beast. A cat is a cat. A dog is a dog. So whatever they are coming to life with, if you like, innate limits. Those limits are put on those animals. But when it comes to human doesn't have those limitations. Human is like human can become a super, let's say, fearful or super excited, or can go to the other extreme as well, becoming like a tyrant or becoming like a person who wants to take everything, or one might want to be very stingy and doesn't want to leave anything. So might be very wasteful. Like human is really oscillating between these boundaries because no hard-coded boundaries are set for human being. This is where straight path becomes a matter of discussion, because we don't say a moderate dog, we don't say a moderate cat. Like a cat is a cat in this sense. But rather we say to humans, we don't say, oh, he's like a snake, he's like a fox. Like for humans, we use such attributes, but we don't say a cat like a fox, like a cat is a cat in this sense. So this is where, since human can oscillate between those extremities in the, let's say, those feelings given to us, this is where we need a guidance. How am I going to navigate properly? So since there are no limits set on human feelings, then we can also ask the question, a small parenthesis, and ask a small question in there. Why is it so? Why human is not set with any set boundaries, but rather left free in there? So for that, since we have a ton of slides that you have seen at the beginning, I'm not going to take it too long. Human is meant to learn. Like a cat does not meant to learn what it means to be a cat, or a bee does not learn how to make honey. A bee comes to life, starts producing honey right away. A cow, a small calf, comes to life and knows how to run, eventually starts reproducing, produces milk, and dies, and fulfills the purpose of its life. But for human, as we have small humans here, you see that small human in there is not even able to walk. Like she's supposed to learn how to walk. Yeah, but she cannot even talk. There was another small human being somewhere, like Ali is there. Now he is starting to learn how to talk. Like learning is what is meant for human, unlike for animals. So since learning is human's functionality, or the purpose of why human is designed for, meant for, oscillating between these extremities is how we learn. Yet, in the absence of boundaries and the possibility of going to one extreme or the other for all the feelings that are given to you, how am I going to navigate? Becomes a question. This is where we are in need of verbal limits, since we are, like, human is made as a learning creature, unlike birds, unlike kittens and whatnot. I mean, this is a distinctive property. I mean, of course you can say, well, my bird learned how to say my name and whatnot. That's, I mean, that much of learning in there at best. But human is a learning machine. This is what human is made for. So human is in need of an instruction to say that you can start from here, go all the way up to here, but do not go beyond these boundaries. And this is what revelation is for. Somebody comes and tells me that this is the territory you need to stay in. Don't go below this, don't go above this. Which, I mean, since we are on a university campus, I take it more so as a syllabus of a course. Like the instructor, because it's a vast knowledge. There's this vast sea of knowledge, but you don't know what to learn. What are you going to do? This is why you pay this many dollars to those universities, right? You are in need of a guidance in order not to get lost in this vast sea of knowledge. You don't know where it goes if you would like to get a CS degree, for example, Abir. So you are going to pay this money to that school so that they say, okay, this is the territory you should stay in. Do not just go saying that, oh, I love playing computer games, so I'm going to become a game designer. They would say, well, it's different. Like playing versus designing is different. So they will keep you within a certain territory. We are in need of guidance. So now that we have this lack of strict limits in creation, yet verbal limits, what are the paths before us? So there are two extremities and a middle ground in between them. There could be the deficiency, there could be superabundance of it, and there's going to be the straight path in between. In our case, we will be focusing on the feeling of anger-fear. So the deficiency of that feeling or improper use of it in the minus extremity is going to be fear, being fearful, extremely fearful of things. The plus extremity, like the positive infinity, is going to be like tyranny. I'm not afraid of anyone, and even I'm transgressing others' rights. And people will oscillate in between the two. And actually, as we will see, maybe they will be happening at the same time too. But then, what is the middle ground between the two? And what defines the middle ground? What takes me to the straight path? And this being said, we keep mentioning it as a straight path, not as a destination, which is also an important thing to note. This is going to be a problem or relevant throughout our life. Every moment of my life, I'm going to find myself somewhere in there. So this is a problem that's relevant to me throughout the journey. So I would like to stay in the path. So unlike, let's say, getting a degree is a goal. You get the degree, and for the rest of your life, you are being named with this degree. Okay, you are a computer scientist, Abir. But this was a goal you achieved and you got it. Unlike this one is saying that, no, it's going to be a lifelong journey and you would like to stay in the right path without making those zigzags. How can you do that? And this is why, as mentioned in the first session, we would keep repetitively asking for staying on the right path, because we are acknowledging that this is a journey and I'm going to be swinging in between. Okay. This being said, let's now talk about this feeling of anger and or fear, anger-fear, and what that is. And as the first session did, is this a relevant problem at all? And for that, I would like to start by asking to our Angry Birds, like this was our logo of our group as we were preparing, and Kadir was the person to actually choose, the first person to jump into this topic. So I am assuming that he's an angry person. So Kadir, what sort of anger or fear, like how relevant is that topic to you? Why were you, among four of us, you were the first person to jump onto this topic? Why is it relevant to you?
I think it is really, really relevant to me in my daily interaction in life. So as for the fear aspect, you have multitude of fears. Like, for example, right now, I have the fear of getting a full-time job. Like I'm graduating in a year and I'm worried about right now. Like I have one more year to go and I'm still really, really fearful. Like what will happen? And then there's another aspect of like anger in my life as well. Like, for example, if I'm having having a human interaction and it doesn't go as the way I want it to go, and that makes me angry, and like I do not know what to do with that feeling. So in respect to that, like we need to acknowledge and like see that that feeling is being given by the creator. But how do I manage that feeling that has been given to me? Like, for example, in the case of fear, what do I do with it? Like, I am fearful of those things in my life. And there are other things as well. Like, for example, the previous group gave an example of like being fearful of your boss in the job. So I think that is also a really relatable example in case of fear. So all of those things I think are very much present in my life. And I do seek answers for all of these.
And these are making discomfort to you, right? Like this fear, this anger makes it that you don't want, you just want to get rid of that.
Yeah, it's like an anxiety, and you just like want to shut you off from all of those feelings. You don't want to even think about those things. And you just say like, okay, let's focus on what's right in front of me, and I'll just not think about these things.
Jazakallah khair. Any other Angry Birds? Ciel, what are your, like, why are you interested in this topic?
Originally the thought about anger that interested me was how do you have like justified anger such that it's like not misplaced, and thinking about the current events, especially like the oppression, the genocide against the people of Gaza, that was particularly something that was stewing up a lot of that anger. And so I was considering like what do I do with this anger? Is it something that you just sort of unleash and then like almost indulge in, like just kind of let it flow and use it to like completely fuel you? Or how do you respond to it? Do you use it in a way that is like, controlled and try to channel it towards some sort of purpose? So that was the thing that really for me was driving me towards this topic. And then I saw the other side of it too, of like there's a lot of fear of like what is happening to these people. These are people that we feel like are very dear to us. And what will be the repercussions, if we speak on this, like even in our workplace, for example, knowing that we work with people who are going to have a very different perspective than us. Like, do I have any right to even speak on this? Do I just stay silent when the topic comes up? So it's like this, balancing those two things, and trying to understand how do you navigate having those emotions, and what am I justified in doing with those emotions? Like, what is the proper way to manage them?
Yeah, actually, this is an important point. Yesterday, I was giving a khutbah of this topic to prepare at Drexel. But like once you're talking to people, by looking at their eyes, you can understand their state of like spiritual state at this moment, or their psychology. I would say 99%, if not everybody, was anxious when I was talking about fear and anger as it relates to the events in Gaza. Even mentioning it is inducing some anxiety, especially in college students, more so with the fear, because like at Penn, just a few days ago, 33 arrests happened and 6 students were banned from campus. So your career is at stake. If you just speak about it, doesn't matter what you speak. Like right now, my career is at stake. So this fear is in there. So what do you do with that? Are you going to be fearful and then shy away? Or the alternative is, as we have seen in Columbia University, people are now exploding in anger and starting to break windows and whatnot. What is it? So how do you really maintain or channel this feeling, and rather than oscillating between the two, what's going to be the straight path in there? And anything you would like to add?
I can share a little bit about why I chose this topic. Adding on to what we shared so far, I think the anger that kind of manifests in like our personal lives is also of importance. And one way that I, as a student, feel that or many students can experience anger. It might not be in the form of like an outburst, but it could be like the sudden loss of interest in something that you've been doing for many years, and it might not appear as anger to you. So when I was choosing this topic, I was trying to think about what is making me feel like nothing is working out, everything is against my favor, or against me. There's this like repulsion that you feel towards things. And at the same time, I noticed there's also fear because you're worried whatever you're seeking is not seeking you, for example. If it's a degree, you might be fearing that you won't be able to fulfill all the requirements. And as a way of kind of trying to protect yourself or trying to repulse that fear, you might start feeling angry. Why do I have so many assignments? Why does this have to be this way? Why can't I? Like if you're putting a lot of emphasis on like your ability to control, or you are thinking that you are the one to make the decision, then maybe there's anger towards yourself about not being able to get the outcome that you want. So I was looking at it from like different domains, like from personal life, in your social life, because most of these feelings carry into how you interact with others. You might start complaining about the chores that you have to do, or you might fear that a loved one might not care enough for you. So then you start being angry with them. Even the little care that they might try to show you, you might be repulsive towards it. So a lot of different domains in which these feelings collectively can be experienced.
Yes.
Quick question.
Okay. So I can understand why you are talking about anger and fear at the same time within certain examples, like what's happening in Gaza and so on. But at the beginning, you talk as if they are part of the same spectrum. Like on one extreme, we have extreme anger. On the other spectrum, you have the fear. How they are related? Like why you think the anger and fear relate to each other?
Nicola, very good question. So as we have been studying the topic, like for the first session for Quwa Shahawiyya, they mentioned that this animal appetite is for attracting benefits. When it comes to Quwa Ghadabiyya, the topic that we are now talking about, in English we translated that as power of anger. But why is that put to human being? It is for protecting yourself from harms. And you can protect yourself from harms by either like attacking or shying away. So, and this is the same tool, but you might be extremely fearful and just escape, or you might just become overboldened and then start just annihilating all the boundaries in there and even causing injustices. So going over the board. So this is why anger in one extreme is becoming extremely angry and even tyrannical, is coming from this defense mechanism going over the board, or on the other extreme saying that, no, I'm afraid that they can harm me, so I'm not even going to speak. So this is why fear versus anger in that spectrum. So,
Fight or flight. I
What?
was thinking fight or flight, sort of.
Fight or flight.
Yeah.
But are you taking it this way? You think we have this sense to fight or flight? Like, is that the interpretation? Should I take it this? Like,
What do you think?
we are trying to find the middle ground,
Okay.
like rather than one or the other.
okay.
Yeah, what we are trying to find is there a proper way of handling this? And yeah, not one or the other. Yeah. Another question we had was, do we experience them at the same time? And based on the answers that I hear, yes, we pretty much experience it at the same time. So it's not like Atiq is the fearless guy, but Abir is the like fearful guy. Not like this. Atiq is sometimes extremely fearful. At the very same event is becoming extremely tyrannical at the same time. And we will see the examples of that. These feelings, actually, those two extremities are happening at the same time. The oscillation is happening too quickly. Not even for different events, because it might be that, let's say I'm being very fearful of how my department head is going to treat me if I just do not behave in the department. And then with that anger, with that fear and anxiety, I come home and I start shouting at the ones that I can shout at, like the little ones. If they start playing with just a little loud, or even throw the ball to my head, which normally I should take as a fun, I start exploding and saying that, be careful, what are you doing, and whatnot. So this sometimes happening, I am starting to become tyrannical to those that I can crush, and I am becoming crushed by those who are stronger than me. But as we will see other examples of that from Quran, that we do experience them at the same time. And then, of course, we have this question: how do we control these feelings and not be controlled by them? Because this is what I was hearing from Qadir, for example. He is anxious about finding a job, and he doesn't like to feel that anxiety, because that anxiety, that fear is really sometimes paralyzing him. He's not even able to make choices out of this fear and get controlled by it, rather than what again was mentioned in the first session. This shouldn't be why I am given this feeling. Like, take it this way: when a teacher gives an assignment to students, the purpose of that assignment is so that although the assignment might be hard, student is going to learn something by doing this assignment. So there's going to be an outcome of this assignment. But if the student gets possessed, I would say, by the assignment, meaning, oh, this class is too hard, why is it happening like this? You'll just start complaining about it, will not take anything from this course, will not learn anything out of this assignment. So now the assignment, in my example, it's a programming assignment. In real life, it's the feeling of fear that controls me, rather than me controlling and benefiting from that feeling. So our concern right now is to try to benefit from that feeling and learn something from it. In the first session, the term reading was used. How can I read it as a meaningful message for myself? This fear should become a meaningful message for myself, rather than being a burden. And then there's this question: is there a limit to how much fear or anger I might experience? And we talked about that, it being to extremities. Did I miss anything, Angry Birds, you would like to add? No? Okay. Let's move on. Yes.
Did you just say we are going to learn how to benefit from these feelings?
Yes.
That almost implies that these feelings are a good thing. So it almost means that if there is some benefit in being fearful or being angry, then in a way that seems as if I can make my wife fearful, or if I can make her angry, which I sometimes keep doing all the time without me, then I am benefiting her. But she does not see it as a benefit. But you are suggesting that there is some benefit that we can get from these feelings.
Yes. So actually, this applies to everything in life. So life is happening. So rather than trying to artificially do this, I would just rather go with, you will do certain things, and no matter with what intention you do, your wife will get angry with you. And you know what I mean, right? Okay. So that will happen. But for your wife in this case, the point is to be, why am I in this position, and what am I supposed to take out of that? Could be one approach to take. Or the other one would be, oh, Hassan is still being Hassan. He's the same guy. Like this guy, I don't know how the rest of my life will go. This could be another way to take it. And she can make it just another source of anxiety for herself and make it a torture. I mean, the same applies for your wife versus you. So it's mutual. So this is, and it applies to everything in life, because life is really an education. And if there is something in there, why did the instructor put this assignment to me? Should be a question. Is it for just torturing me? Is it just as a feeling of a gap? This is how it happens, right? If the instructor doesn't know what to teach, he sometimes says, well, just Google an assignment, put it there. It's going to make them busy for a week, and we'll pass it. My creator is not such an instructor. So every individual thing that I'm living in this life is intentionally put in there. Okay? So for these examples, for these cases, we would like to go through examples from Quran. And actually, stories in Quran are not just stories. They are our stories. It's not a historical story of somebody else out there. And for these feelings, we have found several examples of fear, extreme anger in its proper version, in its improper version, for both fear improperly, fear properly, extreme anger improperly, extreme anger properly. Quran gives us very beautiful examples of that. And interestingly, most of those examples we found were from the story of children of Israel and Musa alayhi salam. And inshallah, that's going to be an interesting lesson for us in the wake of current events that's happening in Gaza. And what we can take for ourselves would be our point, inshallah, today. So let's start from the first extremity, fear, the extreme fear, but it stays debilitating. And there's going to be another version of it, fear, but it is converted to courage and security. Okay? So the idea would be, we'll go through verses quickly. I'll give some background about the verse, and inshallah, we will then talk about how it applies to us. So this is one of the first example is from Surah Ma'idah, I believe, chapter 5. So Musa alayhi salam is commanding his people, يا قوم ادخلوا الأرض المقدسة التي كتب الله لكم ولا ترتدوا على أدباركم فتنقلبوا خاسرين. O my people, enter the holy land which Allah has destined for you, and do not turn back, or else you will become losers. So the verse that I would like to especially emphasize is قالوا يا موسى إن فيها قوما جبارين وإنا لن ندخلها حتى يخرجوا منها فإن يخرجوا منها فإنا داخلون. They replied, O Moses, there is an enormously powerful people there, so we will never enter it until they leave. If they do, then we will enter. And this was verse number 22. Then comes verse number 24. قالوا يا موسى إذ لن ندخلها أبدا ما داموا فيها. So they say, O Musa, O Moses, as long as they stay there, we will never ever enter this land. فاذهب أنت وربك فقاتلا إنها هنا قاعدون. You and your Lord go and fight. We are going to be standing here. So if we just take it as a historical story, what's happening in here is Musa alayhi salam, after rescuing his people from the tyranny of Pharaoh, now they're going to a land, and God says, this land is for you, go and attack there and take the land. But the children of Israel, although they have been under the oppression for so long, has been enslaved by the Egyptian Pharaoh. Now they are saying that, no, these people are so strong, and we are going to stand here. Unless they exit from there, we will never enter there. You and your God, you and your Lord, go and fight there. We are not going to enter there. That is fear. And that is a debilitating fear which makes them unable to take action. They are choosing to stay behind. Now, I would like to ask to the Angry Birds, so how does this apply to you? Or how does this apply to us in today's society? So who wants to go first? Okay, let's go here.
So for me personally, I think like Brother Yusuf summarized here, this example is showing how fear is debilitating us to paralyzing us to the point that we are afraid to enter any uncharted territory. And for me, applying it to my life, I can see there are a lot of avenues open to me, but I don't know 100% is this the best for me, and I can't 100% have foresight on what kind of mistakes I might make in that path, or what kind of benefit that I might have on that path that Allah has for me. And I could make a decision that because it's not 100% clear for me, assuming that I will be able to contain all that wisdom, because it's not 100% clear, I am not going to even pursue it. Could be applying to a competitive program as a student, or or if a path is open to you in terms of like being able to learn something new, but you're afraid that you don't know what that learning can mean to you and what changes it might you might be inspired to make through that learning. So I'm not going to learn it. Or it might be a question that comes to your mind and you're afraid to pursue that question. So a lot of uncharted territories that I might shy away from because I fear that there's like I don't have foresight into what it is. So that's a debilitating fear that I think we can experience personally in a lot of different avenues.
And in this case, we should also ask, what is this Ardul Muqaddasa, the promised land, the holy land for me? Because there must, in this case, there's this holy land promised to children of Israel by the Creator, with which they should go and take. So what is the promised land to you by your Lord? That your Creator says, I created you and you're cut for this job and go there. But I say, out of certain fear, I say, no, I'm going to stay behind. Yes.
Yeah, I want to touch on what you just said in the way of like, even on going when you're trying to go onto the right path, like Sirat al-Mustaqim, we go through like all of these similar problems. Like we put all of those boundaries for ourselves. Like, for example, we would say like, if this was that way, then I would pursue it. Or like, for example, let me get to a certain position in life and then I can pursue this thing.
Mhm.
So those are like some of the examples that come to mind when I read these, and like the promised land could be the straight path.
Mhm.
So that is what I mean.
Yeah. And like some practical example for this, which comes to mind is like we are now living in a world, this is a very, very practical example. We are living in a world where religion, meaning, God, these are like very old school, or if you're not smart enough, this is what you busy yourself with. But if you're smart enough, there's this positive, provable sciences out there, which says like God and whatever, it's just fancies or mythology. So now as students on this campus, for example, we are in the crossfire. So we would, per our convictions, we say, or I say, and everybody can take it for themselves, there must be a creator. Yet tomorrow I'm going to go to the lab and do some experiments. So now I'm in the crossfire of the two. So am I going to go and conquer this land of research in the name of my creator? Meaning I will do the research and then my conclusion will not be, oh, it happens by itself by chance, but rather would be, it could not be any other way, but has to be done by an all-knowledgeable one. Do I have the courage to take this fight? Or would I simply say, well, unless the current owners of this territory give it up, I'm not going to get into that domain. And on our Friday discussions for the past, for 5 weeks, this is what we have been discussing. Going through the very thing that we all do as students here. We are going through these sciences, studying them, but studying them in the name of the Creator, to observe them, divine names, is one way to go, or else I would do exactly as it's being done in here. Either I will not enter the territory at all, or even if I enter the territory, I'm just going to be one of them, rather than being a follower of the Prophet in this example. So there's this fear of losing the control to another people. And in this case, the fear, the debilitating fear, is coming from Pharaoh and his second man, Haman, and they're afraid of a child to be born. You know the story of Musa alayhi salam? So this is from the beginning of Surah 28, verse number 6. وَنُمَكِّنَ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَنُرِيَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَهَامَانَ وَجُنُودَهُمَا مِنْهُمَا مَا كَانُوا يَحْذَرُونَ. So these people are afraid of a certain thing. Like the Pharaoh and his administration is afraid of a certain thing. Let's first go with the story for a second. Egyptians are the ruling class, and then there's the slave class, the children of Israel in there. And the Pharaoh is afraid of the rulership being taken from his hand by the new generation of the Israelites. This is why he says, let's mow the grass time to time. So every other year, he goes and kills the newborn boys. This is how he is trying to balance the population in there, so that well, these guys are producing quite fast, so they are going to take over the power. So let's shut it off when it is small enough. This is the fear that Pharaoh had in there, which I guess could apply to us quite a bit, and which you can think about it, whatever is happening in Gaza nowadays, to be a little bit flipped, but quite there. This fear of, but who is fearful in this case? The strong guy is afraid, of whom the weak, from the weak ones, which is an interesting power balance here. The strong one, apparently strong one, the Pharaoh, is afraid of a newborn child who is going to take over his throne. We can apply to ourselves too, but just wanted to put it there. Would you like to add anything, folks? About this? Go ahead.
One example that really comes to mind is like, for example, even in this, like the world that we're living in, someone new comes in and they're like, you're very afraid of them taking over control of your things. Like, for example, the example of the US, like the country that I'm in right now, they're afraid of like immigrants or things like that. Even in my own country, Pakistan, like they're afraid of different people that like they'll attack them and like they'll take over the land. And because they're afraid of all of that, they like try to amplify their own like soldiers and things like that. And yeah, that is one really good example.
Yeah, actually, at larger social circles, maybe this is more apparent, especially in the state. It's quite apparent with like there will always be a systematic way of lowering or suppressing certain people not to get to certain positions. And the fear is, what if they take over the leadership and then we'll navigate it through there? So this is another form of fear. And in our personal life, and I can turn to Hassan at this moment for that too, in, let's say, marriage life, like wife is taking over the entertained idea of, I know it's not there probably, the husband being the ruler in the family, and then, well, what if wife is going to take the control? I mean, surely they got the control when you signed it, by the way, but this fear could be there. I mean, this applies everywhere, and eventually that fear is going to be replaced by fear of children, because they will take the control eventually, not even wife, right? So this is practically everywhere. That sort of fear, losing control to somebody else, is causing another fear, and that fear is going to ignite tyranny as well. Which is another one, brings us to another one, national security. And in the story of Musa alayhi salam, Pharaoh, so Musa alayhi salam comes with a message. His message has nothing to do with conquering a land or whatsoever. He's just saying that believe in one God, the creator, who is the creator of everything. But what Pharaoh was saying was, no, I am your Lord. I am your provider. I am your sustainer. So when Musa Islam brings the message, how does Pharaoh frame the issue? He says, قَالَ لِلْمَلِئِ حَوْلَهُ إِنَّ هَذَا لَسَاحِرٌ عَلِيمٌ. He says to the people, the administration around him, Pharaoh says, he is a very able magician. He is very knowledgeable, very skilled magician. يريد أن يخرجكم من أرضكم بسحره فماذا تأمرون. He is trying to take you out of your land with his magic. So what shall we do against this guy? National security. This is a card that's being played quite a bit across the board in all the nations, all the nation states today. Oh, if that other state, if they become stronger, then they're going to take over us. So we better attack to them before they attack to us. Or you have to pay your taxes to us so that we are going to have a super strong army, so that army is going to defend you just in case anybody's going to attack you. The national security. That fear is very central to human life, and we are being manipulated quite a bit by this. This is why we keep paying those taxes at the society level. And Pharaoh uses this fear as a way to manipulate people. And I can ask the same question today: how much am I being manipulated by the fear of national security, for example? I know it happens a lot in like Turkey. All sorts of things are being justified under the title of national security. All injustices are being done just saying that, oh, but we have to protect the national security. Pharaoh did the same. So this is how it is at the society level, but you can apply it to your personal life as well. If any example, burning example, just you can come up.
Just a quick like personal. I guess you gave an example that's more like societal level, just like personal example of like even like the security, like your iman. We've talked about this before, like when somebody tries to come to us with like apparently what they claim to be scientific proofs of how, you know, the world works, and we try to dismiss it like, oh, I can't even hear it. Like this is a way that he's trying to dismiss Musa alayhi salam, is like, don't even open your eyes to it because it's just magic and it's going to put you in a trance. So we want to close our eyes to it, and we're not willing to engage with it and, you know, use our own senses to understand what we're observing. Instead, we're so fearful of the weakness, the insecurity that we have upon our own belief that we try to, you know, sort of throw it away and avoid even, you know, taking it for what it is, I guess.
Yes, very, very beautiful. Jazakallah khair. So individual insecurities as well, which make me block the door to any sort of message that comes from outside, saying that, oh, it's a national security issue in my personal life too. And one final example for this fear. This is the fear of going against status quo. And this is a verse, فَمَا آمَنَ لِمُوسَى إِلَّا ذُرِّيَّةٌ مِّن قَوْمِهِ عَلَى خَوْفٍ مِّن فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَلَئِهِمْ أَن يَفْتِنَهُمْ. So from children of Israel, only a small group of youth believed in the message of Musa alayhi salam, the verse says. Why not the rest? Because of the fear of Pharaoh and his surrounding people, like his people, the administration, that they are going to put them into trial. Like, messenger brings a message, and I'm afraid of accepting this truth, not because the message is right or wrong, but because if I accept the message, I'm going to put into a certain trial by the status quo. Does this sound familiar?
I think for me, as someone who studies science in academia, it's quite relevant because, like how we mentioned earlier, initially there is that concern. The fear could be so paralyzing that you don't even try to read the signs within the experiments that you're doing or the learning that you have. But at the same time, you could also just be fearing like the retaliation. Like if you accept the message, then you have to, you might be put into like a separate category, kind of like cancel culture, saying, okay, what this person's doing is not science. This is not what everybody else is doing. This is not how you interpret science. There's a methodology that's set and you can't change it. And that fear of people rejecting you, that could be something, I mean, you could see that in academia, but also you can see that in just families, right? What will the people say if you what will family members say if you start wearing hijab, for example, or if you say you want to travel to learn your deen more, or you want to travel to learn science even, but to read the names of God through them. This new understanding that's so foreign to sometimes family members, sometimes friends, or saying that you're quitting a certain haram habit that you might have. All of that could invite people to kind of separate you out. And that fear is kind of like that fear of persecution or fear of punishment, because in a sense that disconnect is also, we might experience that as a punishment for going against the status quo.
Actually, this being canceled or being left alone is a very effective way of punishing someone. So this is why humans are afraid of being pushed out of society too. Like a friend of mine was in some sort of schools with dormitories. boarding school. So he was in a boarding school, and he said the biggest punishment we give to the friend was nobody was talking to that guy. Like if the guy did something wrong, nobody was, and the guy would cry and whatnot, but no talk. So really being cast out is something that puts us into anxiety. And this is what you would be afraid of within the society if what you're going to say, despite being true and you're convinced about it, but you're not telling it because you're going to be canceled. And interestingly, in this verse, just to highlight, although not our major topic, Quran says a group of youth accepted the message of Musa alayhi salam, which tells something. Because if you have a position within the society that you cannot sacrifice despite the opposite being truth, you're afraid of losing your status. So this is why you say, well, let the truth be there. It's true, but whatever. I don't want to lose what I have at hand. So now let's come to a fear, because fear is real. It's not that, well, we are going to give you a remedy here, and after this discussion, nobody is going to have zero fear. Hassan is going to be perfectly comfortable towards his wife and whatnot, no fear. That's not going to be the case. So fear will be there, but how fear can be converted into courage and security? How can we get this in there or making it a meaningful feeling? So fear of losing a loved one. I guess everybody has somebody that they love in their life. Now, it could be your child, it could be your mom, it could be your wife. You would be worried about losing that person. You would be fearful of doing that. And even sometimes if you have this strong imagination, time to time, that imagination comes to your head and you shake off yourself that, imagining your son being killed under a car, and then you just try to scratch it off your head, right? So this is Musa alayhi salam's story again. Moses, as the soldiers are coming to the house of Moses' mom to take away a son in there, so she is like either will give the child to them and the child will get killed, or do what? You cannot hide the child. So the verse says, we inspired the mother of Moses, nurse him, but when you fear for him, put him into the river. And do not fear or grieve, we will certainly return him to you and make him one of the messengers. Fear is there. But then reassurance comes from revelation. The Creator puts a meaning into that fear, saying that trust in me. I am the protector. I'm going to protect your son. Not only that, I'm going to return back to him to you. On top of that, I'm going to make him a messenger. So seeing this perspective, which now I keep reading with the next couple verses later, and the heart of Moses' mother acted so much that she almost gave away his identity. Like, still the soldiers come. She left the baby to the river, and the soldiers comes and says, do you have anything in here? Just imagine yourself. How would you feel like this? You have your newborn baby. They're going to kill the baby. Therefore, this is why you leave the baby to another enemy, which is the river, because the baby can die in there. And when the soldier comes, she is about to just shout, but like Quran is really depicting us these feelings. This is why we should read these verses carefully and apply to ourselves. If I just read it as a story, it's going to become her mother's story, his mother's story. How would I feel? Why is this level of detail being provided in Quran? She was going to give away his identity if we had not reassured her heart in order for her to have certainty. And this is where it ends. The rest is the translation. So, وَأَصْبَحَ فُؤَادُ أُمِّ مُوسَى فَارِغًا إِنْ كَادَتْ لَتُبْدِي بِهِ لَوْلَا أَن رَبَطْنَا عَلَى قَلْبِهَا لِتَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. The word I would like to emphasize here is mu'minin. So the certainty, the iman in here. This is the remedy that we will again and again talk about. Fear was there. Fear is real. But what is going to be the remedy of this fear? Knowing who would be the protector. Is it the river that's going to protect my son? Or is it going to be the creator of my son, who is also the creator of the river, that will save my son? Because many of the students in here are international students. Their parents are at overseas. And it's really like leaving your son or daughter to a river when you send your child overseas. It's insecure. There's no cultural protection around them. It's like whatever current can take them. Your child can get into the party culture, which is a current that can take over your child and get drowned. Or it could be, I don't know, drugs. It could be just somebody can come and shoot. It happens a lot in America. This worry is there, right? So what is going to give security to your parents back in home, for instance? Also, think of it for yourself, but you could be here worried about your parents too, right, Kadir? You have such worries? They're over there.
Yes, like it's very, very like relatable to me personally. Like I was in a boarding school like since I was in 8th grade, and it's very like you feel it when your parents leave you at the airport, or like when they leave you at the college. And the only certainty I think we can draw is like from the creator, and like having certainty in that is the only way. Like they cannot leave me onto the college. Like for example, if they leave me here, there is no certainty into like the American culture or like the American society or the American government. They can't leave me into their hands, or even the university, because all the culture that is here is like not approved in Pakistan, or like it's not the Islamic culture, I would say. So the only certainty that they can have is the certainty in the creator, and that is like very similar for me as well. Like what would happen to their health? Like I'm not there to take care of them. So all of those fears also exist in my heart as well. So the only assurance that I can get there is like the assurance in my creator, like having that iman in my creator, that just as he is taking care of me, he is also taking care of my parents as well at the very same time.
Yeah, because what is hidden behind this fear is as if I was there, I would protect him or her. Am I protector of myself in the first place? Forget about anybody else. Am I able to take care of my health? Like I have been breathing since the morning, and I'm noticing it right now as I'm mentioning it. Like I was not even taking care of my own breathing for how many hours? Like 15 hours so far. So somebody is already taking care of me. Who would take care of the one that I'm fearful about? That sort of a switch is going to give the security of that fear. Otherwise, that fear would be debilitating for mother of Moses as well. The same thing applied with Musa alayhi salam as well. I'm not going to get into details because we are running very short of time, and we have more than twice as much as the verses that I just showed you. So Musa alayhi salam unwillingly kills somebody, and he has to flee from Egypt because he is fearful for his life. And when he comes to Madian, the other city, the father of the two girls that he meets in there gives him assurance, saying that you are now saved. Do not fear. Now you are saved from a tyrannical ruler. So this is another thing that we could have, fear for our life. And I'll have to pass this quickly because of time limitation, unless you have anything else to say. I'm leaving it as an example for you to revisit it later on, but we have so many verses to cover. Okay, fear of rejection. This is an important one. Let's talk about that. So Musa alayhi salam Moses is given the task of delivering the message to Pharaoh. So Pharaoh is the guy who claims he is the God. And now you are going to this guy saying that you are a liar. Get rid of your claim and prostrate before the creator of everything. It's a big deal. And Musa alayhi salam has two fears here. The first one is, he says, I killed someone from them, and they can use this against me, although it was an unintentional kill, but this is not the point. They just want to kill me, and they have an excuse to kill me. So there is a fear for his life. And the second one is, he is fearful of inni akhafu an yukazzibun, that they can reject me, that they can put me to lie. The fear of getting rejected is there. Take it this way. You are thoroughly convinced about a message. Let this message be, there is no God but God. how comfortable are you going to be making a presentation in your philosophy of science class about existence of God, for instance? Just to start feeling about what this might be. Because I remember making this sort of a presentation in my undergrad. That school was super secular, but not only secular, a little bit communist at the same time too. And the classroom that I was in was quite unreligious of an environment. I was the only guy in this classroom who would have some sort of worries about morality, God, this and that. The rest of the people were quite a bit more than progressive, I would say. Not even progressive. Like the Turkish version of progressive means just be free in all sense. I remember how much I was stressed to make a presentation in this classroom about anything related to the message of the Creator. Just because that they would mock me, they would laugh at me, and they would just say, like, we thought you were a smart guy. Like, where are you coming from with those things? And you are studying in this department? Well, you are supposed to be smart if you are there. Like, we thought. So fear of taking this comment about myself was something, although I am sure of the message that I was going to share, but still, I was fearful of speaking as such. Musa alayhi salam had the same thing too. This doesn't mean that, like, Musa alayhi salam having this fear in there tells us something. Like, you are going to have that feeling. The question is, how do I manage that feeling? Musa alayhi salam is instructed in terms of how to be managing that. We will assist you with your brother and grant you both authority so they cannot harm you. With our signs, you and those who follow you will prevail. Do I see that security in the message, even if they mock me? Is this mocking valuable? Do I see this value in the message? So I need to look at, like, to compare who is it that is applying cancel culture on me versus who is it that is supporting me. Observing this is going to give me the courage. Otherwise, it's not going to be like, no matter what they say, I'll just close my eyes. No, keep your eyes open. But with this assurance, with the security, go into this, delivering the message. Now that we have half an hour, let's talk about the other extremity. Okay, we are going a little slow. The other extremity is anger, extreme anger, leading to tyranny. Tyranny of that destructive behavior. Pharaoh killing the male children of Israel and sparing their females. This was the attitude of injustice that Pharaoh did to mow the grass, to break the psychology of Israelites, because he was afraid. Pharaoh was afraid of children of Israel and their youth, and this is why he became tyrannically killing them. At the beginning, we talked about these two feelings happening at the same time. This is where it's happening right now. Pharaoh is tyrannical, but it's not that he is very courageous. Actually, he is super fearful. He is super afraid. This is why he is acting in this tyranny. And any example you would like to give about this?
Just a simple example, like when if a parent threatens to take something away from a kid.
Parent?
They threaten to take something away from their child. That child is going to like throw a tantrum because they're fearful of losing that thing. So that's just sort of like a simple way of like showing like you fear loss of something. So how do you respond? You just like you become like this destructive person, and you try to like you're trying to fight with whatever you have, almost like you have no power, no control. Like, so you're using you're sort of resorting to whatever means you have to like send a message essentially.
Yeah. And actually, this is where the justice is being hurt. Like that person who is afraid of doing something is now becoming tyrannical, meaning now starting to kill the justice altogether, saying that, well, but I have an excuse, which was the first slide, right? National security. If I don't take care of that right now, it's going to become harmful to me eventually. I know it's unjust to kill the guy, but what if they kill me in the future? So I better do it right now. So that fear is leading to tyranny. And actually, this shows us why straight path is something that I'm interested in. Because I neither want to be extremely fearful, which leads to tyranny as well. So if I don't follow the straight path, I'm going to oscillate between the two. There is no escape from that. So I will do injustice, both in terms of going to the fear, extreme fear, and which will lead to extreme tyranny. And I'll keep oscillating back and forth. Which here is another good example of this tyranny, the magicians. So Pharaoh in the story, as Moses comes with the message, Pharaoh says he's a magician. This is how he's framing the message. Magician means he's tricking the people. What he comes has nothing to do with truth. But he's trying to fool people. So, okay, I have my magicians too. So let's gather them together and defeat the guy so that his message is, people will then see that we are better than him. When magicians do the duel with Moses, I'm giving the backstory, and then they realize that what Moses brings is not magic but truth, because they know what they have at hand. They know that what they have at hand is simply tricking people. But what Moses brings is the truth. So they then say, we believe to the Lord of Moses and Aaron. This is up to here. And then now Pharaoh is threatening them, saying, how dare you believe in him before I give you permission? He must be your master who taught you magic. He is now starting to accuse them, saying that, oh, he's your teacher in magic then. I will certainly cut off your hands and feet on opposite sides and crucify you on the trunks of palm trees. You will really see whose punishment is more severe and more lasting. Like those are the people, magicians, a few days ago in the story, were just trying to get some more benefit from the Pharaoh. This is why they're becoming part of this duel. And now, after seeing the truth, they submit to truth. How would you expect these guys to act? Because Pharaoh is really threatening them with a very severe death. It's not like I will kill you. He says, I'm going to crucify you, hang you somewhere so that the others will look at you and get the lesson. So very horrible punishment. And then they say, they responded, by the one who created us, we will never prefer you over the clear signs, the clear proofs that have come to us. So do whatever you want. Your authority only covers the life of this world. Like, these guys are not afraid. These guys are really courageous now. That fear, which is supposed to be there, the fear of losing life, is converted into a very meaningful courage. But how? Because now they do see that there are two lives at stake. One is, if I deny the message of Moses, then I am stuck with a life of this world. And if this worldly life ends per the message of Pharaoh, because the message of Pharaoh says you live only once, after you die, you are done. If I go with accepting Pharaoh as my Lord, then I am losing an eternal life. If I go with Moses' message, what he's suggesting is death is not the end. And this life is just the education. And there's an eternal life. So here is the preparation ground for an eternal life. But if he accepts the second message, then Pharaoh is going to kill this worldly life. So they are now making a choice between two lives. Should they choose an eternal life, or should they choose a life which is bound to end within 30, 40 years? They say to Pharaoh, do your best. At best, you can kill this worldly life for us. But what Moses brought us is an eternal life. This is how you become courageous. What is at stake? What is it that I'm going to lose if I choose one over the other? Is the threat of death not there? It is still there. It didn't disappear. But it's not fearful for them anymore because the other option, losing the other one, is a huge loss. And not only that, now losing their life becomes writing a signature under their conviction. They are thoroughly convinced and signing it with their blood, if you like, in this case, saying that I am thoroughly convinced that there is an afterlife, an eternal life, and the owner of this life is going to give me the other life. And they are sort of laughing at the face of Pharaoh. This is the courage. So this was two examples of anger that leads to tyranny. And now how about a sorrowful anger, which is another interesting anger mentioned in Quran. It's a proper extreme anger. How does it work? So Moses goes to Mount Sinai to talk to the Creator. And then the Creator says, when you were away, your people made this statue of the calf from gold, and they started worshiping it. They're not following your path anymore. Moses comes from that mountain with the tablets, the revelation, but وَلَمَّا رَجَعَ مُوسَى إِلَىٰ قَوْمِهِ غَاضِبَانَ أَسِفًا. When Moses came from that mountain, super duper angry and very sorrowful, very sorry. These two words I would like to emphasize. غَاضِبَانَ أَسِفًا. So very furious, very, very angry, but very sorrowful at the same time. This really defines us. I'm going to skip the rest of the story. I will just tell you the story verbally. Why would a prophet be angry? Because it shouldn't mean that, oh, you're not going to be angry at all. After this discussion, you're going to be the very mildest person that one can find on earth. This is not the promise, and it's not correct either. Musa alayhi salam was very, very, very angry with people. But what was his anger for? How dare you turn away from my message was not the case. It was, the anger in there was for the people themselves. How come you become unthankful to your Creator? Like, for example, if my son gets a knife at his hand, he's 2 years old, I'm going to be very angry with him for him because he's going to give harm to himself. So people of Moses in this case become ungrateful to their Lord by prostrating to this or worshiping to the calf. And now Musa alayhi salam says, how dare you do that? This is very unjust for you to do, and it's harming you. This is why there is sorrow. There's grief in there. He is angry and at the same time very sorry. Is my anger, extreme anger towards people, does it have these two entities in there? If it's an egotistical anger towards them, I'm not going to have sorrow for them. I'll just be mad at them. But in here, there is a proper use of extreme anger because there's an extreme danger in there for those people. But it's accompanied by sorrow. I am sorry for those people. And actually, we will see the example of this maybe inshallah in the future if we discuss in one of the retreats the topic of jihad in Islam and what does that mean. That would apply for the battles that the Prophet ﷺ went into. Why would you go there to fight with people with sword? Are you interested in getting land and getting property as the kings would do? Or Prophet's intention of going into these battles were for distributing the message again. But of course, you cannot go to a battlefield by being a mild person. Like you're fighting. How would you fight? Without being tyrannical, though. Extreme anger with grief in there. You are being sorry for the person in there, and you're trying to save the person, not kill the person in a sense. But inshallah, in the future, this is a separate topic. What does it mean? Like the topic of jihad and qital, two separate words are being used in Quran for that. Qital is the fight, which is a special case of jihad. But inshallah, we should discuss this in the future. But this verse could be a good guide for that. Anything else you would like to add?
So far from this discussion, what I'm taking away is when we think of courage, normally, if we weren't thinking about fear or anger in relation to courage, well, normally what we would think is we have to just repel these two extremes, and we come to that middle point and try to see what that middle point is. And we tend to think that that middle path doesn't have any fear or anger in it. So like you were saying, we imagine these like, I guess, characters that have no fear, it's just, and no anger towards anything that's happening in their life. And it's just that, I don't know how you would imagine that person, but it's just like, just courage. But then if we try to define courage, it's always in like relation to these two extremes. But what I'm understanding so far is we do still have this quwa, but it's in redirecting it, like knowing exactly what it's looking to, like that anger. Is it for a benefit that really doesn't bring you any benefit? It's to oppress, then that's an extreme anger, but it transgresses the limits. Or if that fear is taking you away from the message and taking you to a point where you're afraid to even try anything or learn anything, that then it becomes debilitating. But instead, if that fear is directed to like a sorrowful or a fear, if that fear is directed to fear that the message is not being delivered, or the fear of God, or meaning transgressing the limits that he has set, and if that anger is also directed to that same purpose, that's where I find courage. So the courage is not something that's devoid of either fear or anger, but it's in redirecting it.
Yeah. So just putting it in a, now you are using the same feeling, but putting in a meaningful context in which now it becomes fruitful. That something that which was initially debilitating or tyrannical, the same feeling is not being used in a meaningful manner. Just one example with that from, again, Quran. At the time of Musa alayhi salam, per the explanation of Quran, children of Israel didn't take Jerusalem. But this happened after Musa alayhi salam, right before Dawud alayhi salam, David. So Talut, and in the biblical name for that is Saul. So Talut and his soldiers were now attacking the city. And Talut says to his army, Allah will test you with a river. So whoever drinks from it is not from me, with me. And whoever does not taste it except a handful, like a simple sip, is definitely with me. They all drank except for a few. Like from that army, most of them drank from this except a few. And when he and the remaining faithful, or the believers with him, crossed the river, they said, now we are no match for Jalut, Goliath, and his warriors. Now the fear starts kicking in. Like they were not fearful of the enemy up until they drank from this river. And the commander said that don't drink from this river unless a handful. After drinking from the river quite a lot, the fear kicks in, and they say we are no match for Goliath and his warriors. But the others, the ones who didn't drink, they were certain they would meet, and they are sure that they're going to meet the Creator. They said, how many times has a small force win over a big, huge army? By the will of Allah, and Allah is always with the steadfast. This is defining where the courage is coming from. Now for this story, that river is the river of life that's flooding, that's passing by, and every single one of them is passing through that river. And the prophetic message here is just do not indulge in that water too much. Just drink a sip of it. That's sufficient for you to pass the river. But if I load myself too much with the river itself, what happens is once I pass the river, I'm not able to fight with the enemy. I'm not able to be ready to stand up for the truth, as all was mentioning so far before. Because there are many things that I cannot lose. Now there's my career, there's this family, there's this position within the society that I have. And if I accept the truth or speak about the truth, what would they say about me? So I'm afraid of standing up. So hence, courage is lost because of my priorities being changed by drinking a lot from that water, from that life that I am living into. So this is again another example of what is the source of fear and what is the source of courage. The source of courage for the other group is they are sure that they are going to meet their creator. They don't see the end of life as becoming non-existent. They're saying that this is just a school and I'm going to graduate from here to meet my creator. It's life keeps on going. It's not coming to an end. It's not a single life. And then there is this other verse again about the same topic, and inshallah we'll conclude with that. الذين قال لهم الناس إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشوهم فزادهم إيمانا وقالوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. So those who were warned, your enemies or the people have gathered against you, so fear them. This warning only made them more stronger in their faith, in their conviction. Faith means conviction. After this threat, which was supposed to increase their fear, is increasing their conviction. The conviction is the source of their courage. And after this increase of conviction, they say, God is alone sufficient for us, and he is the best of the protectors. So what's the source of courage? Source of courage is your conviction, your iman, your faith. So it cannot be that, oh, I'm going to get a drug and I'm going to become fearless. Or this is how they do, or at least when I was playing strategy games in middle school. So in order to send your soldiers, like make them more courageous, you make bravery so that they drink alcohol, so they become more courageous warriors. Like, this is not how you become more courageous, not by taking some chemicals in. It is by increasing your conviction, your iman. This is the key for courage, not any sort of worldly things that's going to, as we have seen, the worldly things, the river is making you fearful, not more courageous. Okay, so I'll have to skip this part. Okay, I guess we have 10 more minutes, right? Yes, no? Yes. We have 10 more minutes, yes. Okay. Okay. Very brief question.
So Jazakallah khair. You talked about the first type of anger was the sort of justified anger, but you coined it as sorrowful anger, right? In the case of Musa alayhi salam towards his people. And you said that even when we have that justified anger, it can in fact be more of a sorrow because the wrongdoing that you are angry about is towards themselves, right? And I can definitely see the case even when that wrongdoing also impacts others. But especially when it impacts others, like that justified anger, I can't necessarily feel the sorrow for it. So I'm wondering, how do we understand that sort of justified anger when there is wrongdoing that affects the wrongdoer, but also definitely the innocent, right? How do we understand that justified anger in Surat al-Mustaqim, in the straight path?
I mean, this is a very, very relevant and good question. And in this case, and I think this should go more with our discussion about jihad too, because like in case of jihad, what's happening is, let's take a simpler case where a tyrant is killing an innocent child. This is definitely harmful for the person himself who's doing this crime too. because like he is losing his humanity by doing this crime. But at the same time, he is harming the innocent child too. And this is going to really stir your blood. If you are seeing the scene, you're going to be super angry because there's an injustice being done here. Would you be sorrowful is the question. I would say it depends. What I mean by that is, in one sense, could you still be worried about the tyrant in this case? And I'm going to take you to Prophet ﷺ's case, where the chiefs of Mecca were trying to, like, their crime was to prevent other people to believe, not only killing their lives, but killing their eternal lives. Like, their crime was to prevent people from accepting the message, which is a bigger crime than simply killing their 60 years of life, because they are trying to pretty much kill their eternal life. So it's a bigger crime, really. Yet, that crime, Prophet was angry, and human people were angry with their behavior, but still, they were worried about those chiefs themselves being saved from that error too, because they are losing their own life, and they are trying to make the people lose their eternal lives too. So there's the sorrow for that person for doing that crime. So I would like to prevent him from doing that crime too. But you're right. I am also angry that other people's rights are now being like annihilated. They're trying to kill them. So I'm being angry with the guy for the rights of the other people too. But I think still the feeling of sorrow for that human being is there. Why? Because I do not really know if that person has any open door in their heart. If that would have been the case, Moses would never go to Pharaoh for inviting. Moses still goes to Pharaoh, and the Quran says, go to Pharaoh and talk to him with kind words. Because still you're trying to deliver the message to the Pharaoh person of Pharaoh, the guy himself, so that he himself is going to save his, or get turned from his wrongdoing too. The sorrow or the worry even about this tyrant is there in the prophetic path. But once they come to the battlefield, this is where now jihad is starting to kick in. Once they come to the battlefield, that mercy is being put on the shelf. Because now that the guy is saying that, no way, I closed my door to you, and now you will deliver another message, this time with the power, saying that what you did was wrong. You shouldn't have been doing this. Now that the conversation ended and you made it clear that you're not going to accept it, now let the power talk. This is why in the battlefield, there wouldn't be any mercy in this sense. But inshallah, we can talk more about this in a future retreat about jihad and qital. And it's very related to the topic of fear. So let's, in a nutshell, what is the Quranic remedy then? Because we have been studying Surah Al-Fatiha. Let's try to find the opening chapter of Quran, the first chapter. Let's try to find the answers from Surah Al-Fatiha in the light of what we have seen. We have seen several examples. We talked about remedies in there too. Now let's see what the Surah Al-Fatiha says. Because the verse we are studying is, I believe, verse 5, Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. But up to verse number 5, Surah Fatiha starts by saying, Alhamdulillah, actually in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. It starts telling me about my maker, my creator, and teaching me about him in terms of his mercy. And then says, all praise is due to him, Lord of all worlds. Oh, really? I thought I was praiseworthy for making this presentation. After the presentation, if you guys say, oh, it was a good presentation, I would say, oh, yeah, thank you. But this verse is saying that no, all praise is due to him. Don't think that you did anything. Anything that's praiseworthy belongs to him. This is really adjusting my conviction. I thought I was praiseworthy. He says, no, you are no way praiseworthy at all. He is the one that's praiseworthy. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, again, compassion and mercy of the Creator is being mentioned to me. Maliki Yawmiddin, he is the master of Day of Judgment, reminding me of the fact that this is not a single life. This is a school in which you will get educated and you will be held accountable for what you did right, what you did wrong. This is the part that now the second portion of remedy is coming. The first portion of remedy is your conviction, iman. And intentionally, I am using the word conviction rather than faith, because faith in English is a wishy-washy feeling, like a feeling of gaps. But iman, the word Quran uses for that, has the notion of security, sureness, conviction. You are sure about it, thoroughly sure about it. Your mom loves you, you're sure about it. That is sureness. Iman is you're sure that a merciful creator must exist. That's what the Quranic word iman could be understood as, one way to understand it. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in was the other word. And this was mentioned in the previous session too, which is also, again, a remedy. In the first session, it was a remedy for the appetite. In this session, it's a remedy for fear versus anger. To you alone we worship, from you alone we seek help. If I am seeking help from my boss, if I am seeking help from my family, my academic environment, then I'm going to be fearful of them. If I am worshiping my title, if I am dying to become a professor, whatever, then I'm going to become a slave of them. Because whatever they say, well, you shouldn't talk about such matters. I would say, okay, I'm not talking about them. Unless, and my motivation is being that I'll keep silent until I'll get the position. Once I get the position, then see how much of a warrior I'm going to become. I'm becoming enslaved. But what is going to be the source of my courage in this case is Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Did I digest this? Did this become my personal state? Who am I feeling slave before? Whom am I feeling like a slave? The word slave has a very strong connotation in the United States. But apart from that, slave means, as was mentioned in the previous session, how needy I am before him. And if I am feeling very needy before the department head or the dean, if dean says hire the guy, I'm going to be hired. If not, I won't. So let me please the dean. Let me be careful with my Twitter posts. So, and finally, ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Despite being in this state of iman, ibadah, and ista'ana, meaning conviction, worship, and seeking help, also seeking guidance from him. Can I be so sure about myself and say that, okay, I got it. I'll take care of that from here now on. If I do that, I lose it. Where do I seek guidance from? As was mentioned in the first session, in the current society, it is all about trust yourself. You can do it. Believe in yourself. You're strong. But the verse is saying that, where does the guidance come from? Anger management, where does it come from? Realizing or acknowledging that only you can guide me. I'm not able to find guidance elsewhere. And this is why, in the following verse, صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين, to the path of those upon which you provided guidance before. I know you do provide guidance, and I have seen examples of this before, and which we have showed throughout this discussion. Prophets are the ones who have been guided and brought guidance to the people. And I do see them as exemplary people as to how to navigate in this path. So I would like to be on part of this path, rather than those who say, I got it and I will manage it by myself. So with that, inshallah, and we are right on time, I believe. Let's conclude. Any comments, Angry Birds? No. And no question from the audience. Alhamdulillah. Good. So سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواه